Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Joining me for the first time in a long time, former Representative Erik Mortensen, now President of Action for Liberty. How you doing there, buddy?
Pretty good. There's some fun news going on over the last 12 hours or so.
Yep, that's right. You might have, you guys might have called something for some time now. I gotta say,
My email foreshadowed something yesterday.
yes. Hashtag leading.
No kidding. Yep.
All right, so let's get right into it. This is a news story from Minnesota. Probably most of just the politicals know about it unless you live in House District 10A. Representative Ron Krisha, one second, right there. Ron Krisha is resigning, or sorry, not resigning. That would have been breaking news. He will not seek re-election. Representative Ron Krisha, Rhino Little Falls will not pursue re-election to the Minnesota House of Representatives for District 10A. The current term will end on December 31st, 2026. Krisha made the announcement Wednesday, October 29th. Quote, 8 months ago, Wendy and I decided the time was right to step aside and direct our attention to family and a new grandchild. I am honored to have served for 7 terms and have met some amazing people, Krisha said. Okay. Jesse's, are you familiar with the story Jesse's working on, or the piece of intel he's getting, Mort?
Well, no, when you throw it at me like that, I don't know. I would assume so, but that's
I need to message him. He's just over there. So in case he gets that, it might be good to bring up on this show. What I find so fascinating about this is, you said you were foreshadowing, A. Farrell. So Krisha's been in the news this week, right?
yeah.
Mostly because something that, we caught wind of this thing like
4 months ago. I mean, even longer actually, but I know our first story was written 4 months ago, back in June.
Yeah, but I was gonna say we caught wind of the fact that there was actually going to be some Republicans calling him out. I thought that was just last week.
About a week ago, we had heard that some Republicans in the House might be willing to call out Ron Krisha, which I kind of doubted, but it happened. What, 2 days ago, right? Are you talking about?
Yeah, I doubted it too.
Yeah.
And it happened. So Elliot Engen, I think just shortly after he announced his run for state auditor, came out with something. This is a story. You can go to actionforliberty.com and read it. This is by our infamous MAGA Jesse. It says, Action for Liberty is always ahead of the curve. On example after example, AFRL is leading the Minnesota grassroots conservatives through thought movement. From predicting the Kamala Walls ticket while Biden was still in the presidential race, to refusing to seat leftist Brad Tapke, to Rhino Ron Krisha's alleged PPP loan fraud, as you mentioned, was back in June when you guys reported.
Mm-hmm.
AFRL has always been on the right side of history. While AFRL first exposed evidence of alleged PPP loan fraud by Representative Krisha months ago in June, most legislators, including Democrat legislators, refused to take action or even speak of it. Sources tell AFRL that Representative Isaac Schultz has privately defended Krisha in regards to the PPP loans, and establishment puppet Walter Hudson, who supported Krisha for re-election against conservative Diane Webb Skillings, did so publicly on social media. Now he takes a tweet from Walter, who said, Krisha masterfully negotiates significant wins in the education bill, standing against the entire Democrat caucus, the Senate, and the governor. No one else could have done what he accomplished.
Oh gosh, that's so funny. I just got to add a little flavor here because I served in the House. I know Ron, and that tweet by Walter makes Ron Krisha sound like some amazing, super intelligent, genius level person that can only navigate the waters of the Capitol, and we're so blessed to have him. Krisha's a moron. I've met him. I've talked to him. The dude's an idiot.
Right. Yes, and obviously not at all principled, not even
not principled. No, he is no. Krisha's been voting for bigger government for probably the entire time he was in there.
I've known of his voting record for some time now. I can't suggest he's really been considered by anyone as a conservative. So, yeah, what a joke of a thing. Let me go back to this article here because Walter continues. It's also utterly ludicrous to accuse Krisha of fraud when there's zero doubt that any actual impropriety would be immediately and aggressively weaponized by the Walz administration. That's an argument I hear often by the Republican establishment is, oh, if the left knew about this, why aren't they going after it? It's like, kind of because there's an agreement. You guys all get along. We learned that after Melissa Hortman got shot and killed,
Well,
that you guys
yeah,
actually
and
are friends.
you think about this. You're up in Little Falls, one of the reddest districts in the whole state. And if you're the DFL, if you're Tim Walz, and you look at Ron Krishaw's voting record, who has a lifetime score on Action for Liberty's record of 50%. So essentially, what that would indicate is Krishaw's with the Democrats 50% of the time. Are they? Do they actually think that they're going to be able to go out and the Republicans in Little Falls are going to get somebody that's even more moderate than Ron Krishaw? Of course, Tim Walz and Hortman and the whole DFL side of things, they have no problem with Ron Krishaw,
right?
Because they know it can only go up. Somebody can only be more conservative from that district, so they will happily take a vote in Ron Krishaw, where he's going to vote with them at least half the time.
Very well stated. I like that. Okay, so the tweet goes on. Allison wouldn't think twice about taking out a House Republican chair. Anyone who takes his stupidity seriously has no credibility. Now let's add a little Mega Jesse flavor in this article. Well, it appears Hudson will have to eat his words. His best buddy in the House, Elliot Ingen, is taking a different stance after months of silence. See below. And this is where Elliot says, when fraud is alleged, it must be answered to regardless of party. Integrity matters. Let's go ahead and play this thing here in case people haven't seen it before.
Because we need an independent watchdog who has integrity, who thinks, does, and says all of the same things and has a clear conscience in doing so, and doesn't selectively choose when to call out bad behavior, fraud, or corruption. Right now, I'm alerting you guys of something that's coming from my own side. Representative Ron Krisha is currently facing a civil matter where apparently, according to the charging documents, he received hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPP loans during the COVID pandemic and claimed employees that he never actually had. And that's an issue to me if it turns out to be true. What I'm calling for is for our own fraud committee set up by Republicans in the House to have a hearing on the matter, to bring it to light, let it have its day. And that way, Minnesota voters can actually understand what's going on here. And if it deserves an immediate resignation, or if this is something that potentially just has an oversight and we're missing some evidence here. And as your state auditor, I'd be doing the exact same thing. We need integrity, we need accountability, and we need a political system that aims to serve you instead of itself. Please reach out with any questions, but I look forward to hearing Ron's response. Thanks so much.
Well, Ron's response, quite frankly, is that he resigned. I mean, let's see. I think that came out Monday, and here's Krisha making the announcement Wednesday, October 29th. So it looks like, quite frankly, that was the big deal. Like, that was what the final straw, maybe, perhaps, even though if you read his press release, Krisha has been planning on doing this for some time now.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure if that fraud case hadn't gone quasi-viral, earlier in the week, that he still would have resigned and announced yesterday. No doubt. No, just purely coincidental. It was the day after Elliot Ingen did that video, which, by the way, when I served in the House, I was calling out people in my own party all the time. I mean, these people aren't saints. They can be corrupted. They're people. And I know how uncomfortable that can be. And I don't know if you picked up on it, but I read in his body language in that video, just before he says Ron Krisha's name, he kind of says one of the ums and looks down, and you can almost see what he's thinking is, oh God, am I really going to do this? Because it does take some guts to call out people in your own party. And, the type of guts that, Walter Hudson certainly does not have. I don't think he's commented about this thing at all.
No, but the only people Walter Hudson comes after is Action for Liberty.
Oh yeah, cancer. We're always the problem. But boy, I think we got a pretty good track record, especially the last couple of years.
Yeah, let's go over that, because you had an email out and you was talking about foreshadowing. I think the email went out Tuesday before Ron had even mentioned that he was going to resign. And yeah, A4L, you're told by the Republican establishment how bad Action for Liberty is, right? Like, you got to watch out for those guys. Turns out, like, aren't we leading the way?
I would sure say so. I may be a little biased here, but when we called out what happened with David Hann, unseating hundreds of delegates up in CD7 in Otter Tail County, and we called him out, said this guy's corrupt. It came to light that he had unilaterally made this decision. Um, but we led that fight. You and I went up to that garage up in Fergus Falls and interviewed hundreds of people that were there and pushed out video. I mean, we're trying to expose the truth of what happened with that. And ultimately, for those who don't know, I think 31 out of 33 or 4 of those otter-tailed delegates ended up getting seated. So of course they wanted them all, but I mean 90+% is pretty good. We called out the whole Brad Tabke thing, how that's a bad idea, because the House Republicans put all of their eggs in that special election basket from that guy who got booted out of office because he didn't live in the district. That was foolish. I don't know why they would put their eggs in that basket when it was, what did that guy win by? 40 points? That was absurd. We were the ones saying, hey, the party's paying a Michael or a Harris Walls donor and social media influencer. They're paying a white dude for Harris your donation dollars. And they denied it. And we had that call with what's his name, Plekish, and we exposed that thing. So time after time, we're telling people what's actually happening within conservative politics in Minnesota. And every time we shine a light on what's going on, the establishment scatters from the light and they say, you're a problem. You got to shut that light off. You're exposing too much. But, we're doing this for the people and we don't care what the politicians think of us.
Okay, so I just got the piece of intel from Jesse and Mort.
Yeah.
You are going to enjoy this very much. Speaking of leading and things that we break, and I just got to say, the thing about Action for Liberty is we think our accountability is to the people, especially our supporters. That's not what legislators believe, not at all. These people, these politicians, they do not want to be transparent. They want to keep things in secrecy. So Jesse had a source. He knew he was working on this before I went live on air. He just sent it to me. So once again, I just have to state, and I'm just going to read this verbatim here. This is Krisha's press release. He literally says, 8 months ago, Winnie and I decided the time was right to step aside and direct our attention to family and a new grandchild. I'm honored to have served for 7 terms and have met some amazing people, Krisha said. This is the Hometown Source website. We could put it in the links too here. So this is what Jesse just sent me. 1 second. This is a fundraiser on October 8th, pheasant hunt fundraiser for Representative Ron Krisha and Senator Jeff Howe, 8:30, 11:30 hunt, 12:30 p.m. lunch, Hunts Point Gun Club. Suggested contribution, $500 Victory Fund and $500 to HCRCCC RSVP to Ron Krisha. Why is he raising money? Why is Representative Ron Krisha raising money on October 8th?
Yeah, that doesn't quite add up. I had not heard that. That is fascinating that he just had a fundraiser 21 days before he announced he's not even seeking re-election. Hopefully he's returning those funds.
Yeah.
That'd be honorable.
Well, one person might think if you made up your mind 8 months ago that technically you shouldn't be supporting a fundraiser for Representative Ron Krisha, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Interesting.
One other little nugget here, and I don't know where this thing's going, and maybe Ron. I mean, listen, first of all, let's just call a spade a spade. When you decide to denounce that you're not going to run again, suddenly, after this stuff really comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes you look a little guilty. Right? It kind of makes you look a little guilty.
100%. I don't believe it for a second, not a single second do I think that this is just coincidental. I mean, seeing that fundraiser thing, typically when these guys decide they're not going to seek re-election, let's just talk about how it actually goes down. They decide they're not going to seek re-election about 9 days before their endorsing convention.
Right.
That's when Tony Albright announced these guys know that a convention calls for endorsing conventions have to be issued 10 days in advance. So they go out and they recruit their replacement. And then about 9 days before the convention, they say, you know what? I'm going to hang up my legislative shoes and I'm going to retire. Oh, but you know what? look at this guy over here. He's pretty good. You should consider voting for that guy. That's how these things go down, so they can stack the deck. They don't
Right.
announce in October, in a non-election year. That's no, not
Right.
the case.
Right. All right. So just so people understand like the story behind this, we talked about it. Maga Jesse went through this back in June. It's on actionforliberty.com. You can go there right now and see this most recent article, which hyperlinks to it. But this was the original story, June 25th. Morrison County Republicans accused Representative Ron Creech of PPP loan fraud. Now, technically, Action for Liberty is not the one breaking the story. It was people telling Action for Liberty.
Mhm.
We had the sources, right? It's just that Action for Liberty is the one that brought it probably beyond the ranks of like his district.
Yeah.
What it says is so anyone can look up the PPP loans. This is like the massive loans that business could get, right? And so if you're an independent contractor, you can apply yourself to the federal government for a forgivable loan, right?
Mhm.
Essentially, you're not going to get paid, so here's the money, right? I remember thinking like the dumbest thing I did is not do it like back then. I knew I could
Yeah.
have got it as an independent contractor. I'm like, no, I'll find a way to make money. And now I'm the one paying the damn bill because, by not taking the money and they just inflated the currency to pay for this thing, everyone else gets the benefit and I didn't. Long story short, I'm not trying to make a political statement on who should get the PPP loan, but you can't, if you're a business, if you don't have employees, you cannot get this loan. And here is his PPP loan application, which said the first one said 17 jobs, 17 employees, and the second one said 20. And so essentially, there were no employees because in a deposition, he said, this is how the two things came together. How many employees currently at the company? I have no employees. And then essentially saying they're all independent contractors. So he doesn't have employees. What I find really interesting is you even go to his website right now, Golden Shovel, and it's all AI. Now, Ron Creech is a real person. Maybe he's a lizard person. I don't know. Ron Creech is a real person. I've seen Ron Creech. I've met Ron Creech. Okay. So maybe these people do exist and they just wanted enhanced photos through AI. But that's a maybe. I mean, look at this. They're all AI generated photos. I don't know how well people can tell because it's getting really good. This one's super fake looking, right? They're AI I mean, obviously, look, they don't have this nice office space in, like Minneapolis, which is what that kind of looks like. So anyhow, the one thing I learned, and you and I have an interesting story because we were in Little Falls during the height of the vaccine mandates,
Mhm.
and we were at a health freedom rally, and we were both speaking. And I remember you called out Ron in the audience, and he just said, "You're ineffective," because you were a legislator back then. "You're ineffective. You don't get any bills." And then I went up and I spoke, and I was like, "You know what? Mort did it. I'm going to call out Ron Creech. Ron, are you going to sign this pledge for no vaccine mandates?" He didn't even answer. He just goes, "You're a fraud. You're blah blah blah." And the more I learn in politics, the more when people accuse you of something, they're the ones guilty of it. It's like that guilty conscience is coming out.
Yep.
And once again, this is alleged fraud. We don't know, but it
Yep.
looks pretty bad to the point where he's even not seeking reelection.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember that day, and we're standing in that gazebo. I mean, it was just interesting being to all these events. I mean, we went to a ton of these things across the whole state. We tried to get to as many as possible, including during the shutdowns when all those restaurants had the courage to open back up. You and I bounced all over. I mean, every corner of the state that
Mm-hmm.
clearly had a restaurant that was going to open. And yeah, calling them out in front of, I mean, it was a well-attended event.
Yep.
Probably 300-400 people out in this park, and he essentially refused, right, to sign the thing. But like you said, he just would shout out accusations at you and I, and then of course you and him got into it a little bit. I don't know if you still have that video, but that was
It's on
fascinating.
YouTube.
He ultimately left and said, "I got better things to do." It's like you have 400 constituents right here that are angry and mobilized about a particular issue, and you have something better to do.
Right.
You're nuts. You don't have
Yeah, like
anything better
win
to
the
do.
day, buddy. Like win the day.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I remember Jim Abler working this line of one of the big rallies we had outside of a hospital. I was like, you freaking kidding me? At least Jim Abler understands to work the audience and try to get. And they all thought he was a good guy until I went up to him and go, "Jim, why don't you sign in the pledge?" And then I like literally I chased, not purposely chased, but because he wouldn't answer me, and I was starting to look bad in front of these people. I chased Jim Abler away from the picket line. So that was a video, dude. That was really interesting. But just so, I mean, Jim Abler is the same guy that literally stood in front of thousands of people at the Capitol at Mark Bashofsky's rally and said, "I'm the reason Jan Malcolm has a job. I stopped Jan Malcolm from getting fired. But enough is enough. Now is the time to fire Jan Malcolm." Never brought the vote after that, but everyone's giving a round of applause. I'm just like, you're
Yeah.
such a fraud, man. But at least
Yep.
Abler understood.
Jim Abler on our 2025 scorecard is well, Justin Eichhorn was the Rhino of the Year in the Senate, but Justin's got other issues, obviously, at this point. So the runner-up, or you might even say he is the Rhino of the Year because he's still in office, is Jim Abler. 27% on the Liberty scorecard. So 73% of the time, he's voting like a liberal. It's terrible.
Man. Well, let's get right into it. Sorry, that was a big intro, but hey, listen, guys, news happens. We got to report it here on at Truth Hurts News. All right, so this is the scorecard. You can go to Action for Liberty. You'll see a scorecard button right on the top of actionforliberty.com. This is, I'm just gonna say, Mort's my replacement now, president of Action for Liberty. Almost we're going on almost 2 years now. This is a better scorecard than any scorecard I had. So I'm just going to give you a nice compliment. The board made the right decision in my replacement. I think maybe they got a better president. But I also credit where it's due. Mega Jesse, really the brains and the muscle behind this operation. This is just fantastic.
He did a great job with the scorecard. I think visually it's, stimulating, and I helped, kind of come up with all the spreadsheets. And we toggle back and forth a bit on some of this stuff. So I don't know where you want to jump in, but if you want to talk about methodology first or what?
Yeah, let's just go with right where it is here. I'm going to keep it in the background so people kind of take a look at it. And if you want to look at it at home, we're going to cover it. And I'll also field comments when we get to the section with legislators and see which legislator you guys want to look into. But first of all, like A4L, basically has a very easy scorecard. It's the way I look at it. You just have to vote with liberty. So essentially, we view, the right course is to expand individual liberties and reduce government control. So if you're on that side, you're going to do well.
Yep. Which the Republican Party at large claims to be on that side of things. And certainly most of the Republican legislators, they definitely campaign on that message. Now, this scorecard starts to connect that campaign season with the legislative session so people can see what actually happens when they have to push one of those two buttons.
Okay, so one other important thing I want to cover up front, and it's right on that sheet, is that some people look at this and go, well, a Democrat did better than a Republican. Are you saying a Democrat's better than a Republican? How do you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you have Democrats voting the right way, like let's say on the Never Again vote. In February, there was a vote on an amendment that advances the real Never Again language, and the Democrats forced the vote. I know you've covered on your show in great detail. The Democrats forced the vote. They smelled blood in the water on the Republican caucus that there was division on the issue. So the Democrats forced a very insincere vote on the Never Again bill. But if the Republicans in the House really felt compelled that this is important, then they would have voted for it. So, but the Republicans all unified against the Never Again bill, and then all of the Democrats voted for the Democrat amendment. And a little thing that people should know is I've seen Republican House members saying, well, I had to vote against it because it was a Democrat amendment.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that they have drank way too much of the GOP Kool-Aid if they're going to vote against great legislation just because a Democrat introduced it. And that is in a level of partisanship that is disgusting. So like on that vote, Democrats voted the right way. Oftentimes they're voting the right way because, and a lot of that would be a no vote because it doesn't expand government enough.
Right,
so
right.
It'd be a little misleading. You have to think about what is their incentive for how they vote, especially on the Democrat side of things.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to vote against Obamacare because it's not universal Medicare for all, right? It's like they're both bad, right? Medicare for all is worse, but Bernie Sanders takes a principled position against Obamacare. although he
Yep.
probably didn't. I don't even remember his vote on that. But because it's not full Medicare for all, right?
Yep.
Okay. I figured that's worth covering up front. It's actually in that too. So I like that. All right. So let's just talk about the legislative session. A lot of our audience knows this. We saw, and this is such a great recap. I'm guessing this has a lot to do with Jesse's flavor because it kind of sounds like his flavor, although I could see it coming from you. But like you just right off the bat, you envision a government limited to its core, which is where the base is of people. And then I love how like you do this great recap of the year. Like people forget, like literally the year started out with such a weird, like it was literally 3 weeks the Democrats weren't even showing up for work, right?
Yep. Yeah, because that Curtis Johnson guy got the boot, and they wanted to wait for their special election because they knew they would win. For some reason, Republicans, including some in the House, thought that they might have a shot at that special election, and I think they lost by like 40 points.
Yeah.
And then, Democrats
By
started.
the way, can I just say, going off of what we started this show about, like Walter Hudson and some Republicans blamed Action for Liberty for the loss. Like you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, it's Action for Liberty can't even electioneer. We educate people on politicians' stances, but we can't go out there and organize people to go, campaign for or against somebody. We just tell people what politicians do and what we think about that. But yeah, the start of the session kicked off very interesting, and in fact, I think we both gave Republicans credit for actually standing strong at the very get-go and trying to push Steve Simon out of the door and take control of the chamber. But that spine quickly evaporated, I think, the next week.
Yes, and also it's scored in the scorecard, basically the vote to get rid of Steve Simon, which was great.
Yep.
And that was, I think, probably the last time I was proud of Republicans
Mhm.
in Minnesota. Well, other than maybe Elliot Engen actually having the balls to call out Ron Krisha, right?
Yep.
It's very rare you get like you're like proud of these people, right? They just disappoint you over and over again. Okay, so let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about the honorable mentions and the Hall of Shame and just the dynamics behind this. And then I'm sure a lot of people are really curious. How are these candidates running for higher office? How'd they do? So who are the honorable mentions? Who did a good job on the scorecard, which is what's to be expected from Republicans?
Yeah, so like you've got shown up here, we started with the Senate and we looked at the top vote getters, really who got an A or better. So anybody with a 90% or above. So you can see Cal Barr, Cal Barr has always really voted well. He's had a couple bad votes when I was serving with him, where he did vote for an omnibus bill. Bill Liskey, obviously a great voting record, and he's still a freshman. Wiesenberg, reliable vote for Liberty in the Senate, and Drazkowski, both in the House and the Senate for at least the last 6, 7 years has voted well. I looked at some of the older Action for Liberty scorecards back in like 2014, 15, 16, and I specifically looked up Draz to see, did he always have a backbone or at least vote well or not so much maybe? And it looks like 10 years ago, he really wasn't voting all that great. And Lucero. So, Draz and Lucero made the jump to the Senate in the last election. And so those guys voted great. And then in the House, really, there's only one, Drew Roach with a 91.67, and that could have been at least a little higher if he had voted for the Never Again bill, which was his bill. That was his language. That was astonishing to see somebody vote against their own bill language, but that's the record and what he did, so it's reflected in the scorecard.
Okay, so those what do we have? 6 gentlemen setting the standard, which I think most people should just agree that we expect you to do what you say, and maybe they screw up on a vote here and there, but for the most part, you should be getting an A, right? You should be getting 90%.
It should be so easy to get an A. I mean, it should be incredibly simple. And then if you want to look at I don't know if you want to jump to that Hall of Shame, you can.
Oh, why not? Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. And the Senate's quick, right? There's 5 members with a failing grade. So kind of like we all had in school, if you get below 60%, you failed, you flunked. So we had 5 senators out of 33 senators. Now keep in mind, and you know this, but for the people who are maybe just seeing our scorecard or any scorecard, Republicans are in the minority, by one person in the Senate. So it should be extremely easy when you're in the minority to just vote pro-liberty 100% of the time. But still 5 members failed on that scorecard. And then the what I really want to hit on is this House Hall of Shame. And I'm not gonna, you can see the names. You might even have to blow it up a little bit because there's so many. 53. Well, let me say this. The Republicans at the end of 2024, right, when they were messaging that we broke the DFL trifecta. We broke it. And they celebrated. We broke the DFL trifecta. Our scorecard would indicate that the actual DFL, or at least the liberal trifecta, increased by 53. So that's my argument. The trifecta increased by 53 House members because 53 Republicans in the House failed our Liberty scorecard. Essentially meaning, I don't care if they have an R by their name, they're voting like a liberal. So that to me is just, it speaks volumes that the House, you remember Lisa DeMuth and Harry Niska and all these guys, Walter Hudson, we broke the trifecta. We broke the trifecta. I beg to differ. You did not break the trifecta if you guys are just going to vote like Democrats.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's very important to understand, like, the Senate, they are in a minority. So there's this propensity. I mean, that's why you see such a difference. It's not like,
Yep.
well, actually, now that I think about it, there are probably more conservatives or strong-willed conservatives in the Senate, but it's not like the overall caucus is more conservative. It's just that they are taking what would be considered easy votes right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the House, well, we have to legislate, which is code word up the Capitol for we have to just cave to the Democrats.
Exactly. I hate when they say, well, we have to govern. We have a responsibility to govern. That's always code for I have to cave the Democrats because I don't want to have a backbone. I don't want to stand for anything. I'm going to do the easy thing. It's pathetic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get into some of the bills here. This is a very good job. There's a constitutionality note here that the legislation must adhere to the principles and tenets of U.S. and Minnesota constitutions. But what I think is really fascinating is there might be good parts in a bill and bad parts in the bill, but you guys talk about Article 4, Section 17. What's that about?
Yeah, well, that's a single subject clause in the Constitution that says every bill should be limited to one subject. And of course, they've long gotten away from this. And there has been a recent Supreme Court decision in Minnesota where they struck down at least sections of an omnibus bill because it wasn't single subject. So I feel like there's a glimmer of hope there. But when I served in the House and I'm on tax committee and they hear 250 bills in committee over 4 months, and then at the end they just go, all right, we're going to throw all 250 bills into one tax omnibus bill, and it's one up and down vote or up or down vote where you're forced to go, well, there's some good stuff, but there's some bad stuff, and that's how they get you.
Right.
They politicize these bills, so that way it doesn't even matter how you vote. Somebody is going to have an angle of attack on you, and it's all strategically done, and it's kind of done out of laziness. There's no reason we couldn't actually pass clean bills. The same thing is happening, of course, at the federal level right now.
Yes. Well, even worse, it's just a continuing resolution. It's almost like they don't have to change the bills. Although I would argue a lot of omnibus bills really aren't changed too. It's like what happened last time? Add a zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez. All right. So I mean, you can look at this, go to actionforliberty.com. You can go through this, but I mean, removal of free healthcare for illegals, which I think is probably got all Republican votes on that. So that's correct vote. And then as you would expect, there's not a lot of pro-liberty going on at the Capitol, so a lot of these things are vote no, like the health and abortion spending omnibus bill, human services omnibus, K through 12, all these unconstitutional omnibus bills that grew government. In case people aren't tracking that, government was so unaffordable that literally they spent $2 billion of the surplus money. So we are actually overspending, and they're robbing money that's owed to you guys, right? You don't hear your Republican legislator talk about that. We're the only ones that did, right? And then, by the way, when we want them to come on the show and debate us, they won't do it or meet us in neutral territory. It's crazy. So yeah, Republicans voted to rob the surplus funds so that they could pay for a bloated government. Yippee. Bunch of omnibus bills. Then there's some, and these were all special session because that's how it worked. They ran all the time and then they came back and got it all done. Well, wasn't it in a day? It was like wicked quick. Then there was actually specific ones to the chambers. This is the quorum ruling. So you were talking about how Steve took the gavel. What's so fascinating, you see, like, for instance, this bill's 130-2, but this bill's 67-0.
Yep.
Is it going to remind people why it was 67-0?
Because the Democrats didn't show up to work. They were fine taking your money, but they were throwing a temper tantrum under the thought that Brad Tapke might not get seated. So they were issuing their demands, and then of course that deal was ultimately struck. I still don't know what the win was that the Republicans were celebrating in order to get the Democrats to show up.
The fraud committee that's found
Oh,
no fraud.
that can't do any subpoenas and
Yeah,
that,
can't have subpoena.
yeah.
Nothing beats me the Mary Franson tweet. Well, I just found out we actually don't have subpoena power on the fraud committee, but still a big win. I'm like, what is the thing?
I know. I mean, yeah, it's so funny. She tweeted that out like, "Oops, sorry. I guess we are powerless still, but you should be excited that we have a committee named Fraud Committee.
Right.
It's not going to do anything."
It's the Kristen Robbins pre-election or pre-campaign committee, or how should I put it? Pre-candidacy committee. Like, this is just like her big resume builder. She leads the tough fraud committee that literally has found no fraud. And I was thinking about this the other day, like, how much more fraud has KSTP found than the fraud committee? And I got to imagine the fraud committee has more resources than Hubbard Broadcasting. So it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
You got the temporary rules, which is obviously what you were mentioning. Only 2 Republicans to vote against that. Do you by chance remember who those
I think
were?
it was Tom DePel and Drew Roach.
Got it. Then we got surplus being returned, wanted that. Ban in boys and girls sports, repeals duty to retreat. That obviously very good vote there. And by the way, these didn't pass, even though there's 67-65. People have to understand.
Yeah.
In many regards, there's an inflated score because the Republicans, knowing they couldn't pass it, just all of a sudden did these bills, right?
Yeah.
Although they could have passed it, they could have done it.
That's what I thought was interesting watching the floor sessions and at first being shocked that, wow, these guys are forcing some great votes. And then, of course, about a nanosecond later, I realized, because they're under the belief that they need 68 votes to pass anything. So they want to, this is all political cover for them to say, I did the right thing when I voted that way. And because these people largely aren't going to have the courage to do those hardcore bills if they actually had the majority.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Then we've got appeals speaker ruling disallowing never again bill, as you mentioned before, and all Republicans voted against that. And then a K through 12 education spending on this. But then there's some Senate only votes, co-president election, Senate office postage budget. So you're actually doing major bills and some smaller bills. Oh, there's even the Mitchell expulsion vote ruling.
And so let me talk about that a little bit because I'm curious if people want to comment on it. And I want your comment too, obviously. So when we were doing this and we wanted to stay true to how, you had always done it. Like I didn't want to radically change it and have to explain why it's different. So we largely went with, if they're absent, well, then that counts against them. Like you got to get your butt to the Capitol. I don't care if it's excused or not. People don't have representation if you're not taking a vote. But then we started looking at, is a no vote on the never again bill equivalent to the right vote on postage stamps for senators? Like, no, this one has way more liberties at stake than some postage stamp bill. So I think what we're thinking about doing going forward is we need to weight these things. Maybe some of these bills are worth 2 points or 5 points or -2 or -5. So what are your thoughts on, giving some weight to how much liberty is at stake on these things?
Oh, and that's great. And by the way, we got a $20 Rumble rant here from K-Wall for Life. Good to see you, K-Wall for Life. And I think I see you tonight. We got the Founders Club tonight. Halloween in Minnesota politics, not costumes, just masks that never come off. Lawmakers dressed as fiscal hawks, hiding PPP fraud and ethics rot. Trick or treat, and the treat always for them. Oh, that's poetry right there. That was great. Yeah, I actually agree with that, and I had totally forgot. Because there is a weighting. There's definitely a weighting. I had forgot to mention this. This is at the beginning of your description of the scorecard. Why do like Washington D.C. based groups that come in and score the legislator. Why do they always give like a bunch of A's out to these Republicans?
Yeah, it's a good question. If you're looking up the CPAC scorecards, or really any scorecard, I would first look at, well, what kind of bills are they actually scorecarding? Because you get these big national organizations, at least probably most of them, that are aligned with conservative values, and they play the access style politics where they want Lindsey Graham to take their phone call and go, have probably old fashions with them after the sessions. Um, it's like their job is to make Republicans look like hardcore conservative champions by ignoring the big votes like omnibus bills that have a huge impact on our liberties and the size of government. And in fact, it's the same thing with MCCL in Minnesota. The pro-life group. If you're a big pro-lifer and you love MCCL, you might want to cover your ears if you're not ready for the truth. When they say that person, that candidate is 100% pro-life, if that person has cast a vote on the Health and Human Services omnibus bill, and that person's probably a Republican, MCCL goes like this. On that one vote, the one vote that publicly funds abortion in Minnesota, they close their eyes and pretend it never happened. And then typically the Republicans in the Senate and the House, they'll manufacture a pro-life vote, maybe an amendment to an omnibus bill, so they can at least have some sort of political cover that they can point to and say, see, I voted to be pro-life over there. Don't just ignore what I did, 3 days ago. That doesn't matter. And MCCL takes that bait and they do ignore it. And that's how these guys end up with 100% pro-life voting records from MCCL, and how these scorecards get manipulated to help further the politicians and the political class.
Yeah, and it's shocking. Like, it was the American Conservative Union or whatever that does CPAC. That's what they're known for, is CPAC. Essentially, they come and rate these legislators. I remember seeing this many years ago. I'm like, what? These guys are all rhinos. They're getting A's. And I look at the scorecard, and they didn't score a single omnibus bill. So just for people's perspective, I think the one thing that should be unifying Republicans is you're against bigger government, right? Like, isn't that the Republican thing, is we are against bigger government? Well, the omnibus bills are how government gets funded. So in other words, if you're for shrinking government, which every Republican legislator goes around and tells you that's what they're for, but then they do the exact opposite to the point where this year they were actually funding a government that like was overspending by $2 billion and robbing your surplus funds. So, it's like, you don't at all factor those in. Like, there's the argument for waiting more. It is like an omnibus bill that grew government by, what is the Health and Human Services omnibus bill? Sometimes they get combined. They're like a $20 billion bill. Like, I should have a pretty high weighting, and frauds in those things, right? They're like, they're green lighting all that fraud. So, okay. What I want to do is finish off on this, the actual individual scores. We don't have time to go through everything, and most people won't know. You started with the House of Representatives. The Democrats are scoring here. When I did them back in the day, I kind of kept the Democrats off the public one because it's like, they're not good. Like, everyone knows that they're not good. Let's get a comparison. But you guys did put the Democrats back into it, which I appreciate. Let's just start with some of the big ones here because I know I saw. Let's see here. 1 second.
Well, there's Ron Creeshaw, Mr. Conservative, right up top, 33%, 50 lifetime.
There you go. Damuth was somebody, and if you guys want us to look up and highlight somebody, please put it in there if you want your legislator. But here's Damuth. This is the current score. So the 2025 score, 20.83% lifetime score. She actually votes under 50% for Liberty. So just not scoring well at all. We've got Kristen Robbins, and by the way, the one pushback, the one thing I would say would improve your scorecard, and I'm a big fan, it's awesome, would be I'd rather it be in alphabetical order.
I know, even myself was like, oh man, I got to remember district numbers now.
Yeah, well, maybe it's good in the sense that people like start to remember these districts. So I kind of knew Kristen Robbins was somewhere in the 30s. So there's Kristen Robbins running for governor. She is an F lifetime rating, also 41.7%. So when you hear like us talking shit about these people, it's because like, we know what they do up at the Capitol. They're no bueno, right?
Yeah.
We know that Drew Roach was the top scorer, an A, which we would assume most people would get. I think Mike Weiner was a 70%. Let's see here.
Yeah, Wiener was
Okay, Jimmy
75. I
Gordon
think Tom DePel was 75.
and Jimmy Gordon 75. So it looks like there's probably no B's. Tom Murphy was a 75. That's good to see. He's
Yeah, I
getting
don't think
better.
there were any B's. You essentially had an A, handful of C's, maybe a D or here and there, and then just a whole bunch of F's. I mean, we're talking 53 out of 67, so only 14 House Republicans passed with a grade higher than 60%. It's abysmal. 79% of the Republican House caucus failed.
Truth Wins in Minnesota says Jeff Backer 9A, please. So let's go 9A. Jeff Backer. He's a lifetime 60% and an F, a failure. No shocker there. Tom Murphy doing better than Jeff Backer, the other side of that district. If you guys have any other ones you want highlighted, I would certainly do that. Obviously, we have 134 legislators, so it's hard to say. Marge Fogelman, also that 75%. So it looks like there's a batch of people that kind of vote somewhat in sync here. Maybe you call it the conservative group, although there's still C, I would expect better.
Yep.
Harry Niska, the House Minority Leader, getting basically 21%, lifetime still an F. Okay.
Just mentioned Lisa. Somebody's asking Max.
Walter Hudson here, 45.8%. So Walter, who prides himself being a conservative, he's a D-rated legislator in his lifetime, which is, I think this would have been the third year that they did it. Max Reimer, I heard. Is that what you said?
Yeah, somebody's asking Max, 54.
First time Max is at 54%. It looks like an F. So, okay. And if you guys have any other ones, we'll go back to it. Let's go down to Senate here. If you guys could think of anyone you want us to highlight here in the Senate. Oh, Zach Stevenson, the new lead for the Democrats. He's under 5%. Good job, Democrats. Yeah, there's Tom DePel at 75%. Wayne Johnson, everyone knew he was a moderate. There's 41%. Yep. Jim Nash, 25%. We talk about Jim Nash on this show, obviously. House whip. He's the one not only voting that bad, but he's whipping people to vote along with him that bad. Brad Tapke getting under 5% here.
And we should remind people it was Jim Nash that killed the Never Again bill. He killed it in committee this year. He promised a floor vote to the author, to Drew Roach, but he just slowly killed the bill. And even Mike Weiner agreed with me. I presented up in Kristen Robbins' district back in April. Make sure Kristen Robbins' constituents knew she was trying to pull the wool over their eyes with her fake Never Again bill. And Mike Weiner decided to show up, and I talked about how Jim Nash is killing the real bill, and I flat out asked Mike, and probably made him uncomfortable. I said, Mike, wouldn't you agree? Jim Nash is killing the real Never Again bill? And he reluctantly went, yeah, I do. So I give credit to Mike Weiner for, in a room of people, just call out leadership that they're killing a bill that people are dying to see passed.
All right, we're going to the Senate. Mary Kay already wants to know how Jeff Howe did. Let's get right to Jeff Howe. I think he's 14, 13, something like that, 13. Jeff actually surprisingly decent. Looks like 86% in this legislative session. Once again, they were in the minority. They could try to be heroes because when you look at his lifetime rating, he's deep F. He's under 50%. Wiesenberg obviously leading that caucus in my consideration. Estimation. Jordan Rasmussen, we've talked about him on the show. This is who's being groomed right now, possibly to replace Fishbach someday as a U.S. congressman. 68% lifetime rating, 75% lifetime rating. Carrie Heinzman, a B, better than her husband. I think Josh was, So just so people understand, in House District, what is that? What is that district? 6B. I think it used to be a 10. The House, if you're in 6B, your House member is Josh, and the senator is the wife. Josh is a 33%, 1/3 right, and his wife is much more right on politics than him.
Yeah, that's what it would have it appear. Same with the Raricks.
Jason
in the Senate and whatever her name is in the House.
Okay, no, let's cover this one. I didn't even have this planned. All right, so Jason Rarick in Senate District 11 is a 59%. So it's still an F, but
Yep.
high F. And then let's go to House District 11's so we can see his wife, Marion. Wait, Jeff Dott's at Nathan Nelson. That's strange. Where's his wife? Oh, yeah, she's in House District 29A. They don't even live together. Jeez, 45%. So, yeah, the senator is doing better.
Yeah, if that doesn't just scream to people that these people are so addicted to having their hands on the levers of power, they will violate state law happily if it means staying in office. Because I guess I need to be careful of what I, accuse these people of. But they're
No,
supposed to live in your district. I'm pretty sure most married couples live together. I do.
They probably don't. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't. I don't know.
Maybe
Breaking
they
state
don't.
law, or they're apart. What is you have to be there like, what is the rule? Is it 6 months plus a day, or is it like majority time?
I
What is
think it is 6 months.
something
I
like
wanna say
that?
it is.
Yeah. So like maybe they're just apart. Maybe they live
Oh.
together and then they're apart. Wait, no, that wouldn't even work.
Yeah, maybe it's like the winter bugs or whatever they call them. Go down to Florida. Florida for 6 months and a day, get residency, but then come back up to Minnesota in the summer, and maybe they've got an arrangement like that.
Yeah, there you go. The sunbirds, and technically, Marion's the one lives in Wright County, the south of where's he up? He's up by Pine City or something like that. So there you go. The politician Carla Nelson, the senator Carla Nelson, not to be confused with the patriot Carla Nelson, 68%. So she's getting close to a C. Lifetime rating 31%. You could just see Jeremy Miller, not running again, was a former Senate president. Deep F. Yeah, couple A's. Anyone else? Let's see here. Jim Abler, 27%, as you mentioned. Lifetime ratings even worse than that. Let me go back. Warren Limmer, 63% on the scorecard. Let me just make sure. They have an apartment. O'Bannon says they have an apartment together in St. Paul. Yes, but that's not.
Certainly not today.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Who's the wife? Oh my God. So much fun. Anyone else that stands out that we should highlight here? Matt Klein's running for CD2 Congress. He's a 0. That takes a lot. Eric Pratt running for CD2 on the Republican side. 68% lifetime rating of F. Yeah, it's just not impressive at all here. Omar Fattah running for Minneapolis mayor, under 5%, to be expected. I guess this one, Nicole Mitchell, in the votes she did take before. Well, I guess she did the whole session because they delayed the trial for her. She was a 0%. So, boy, we were really going to miss those votes.
What about Julia Coleman? Where's she at?
Julia Coleman's right below it, 68%. So she's a D, and then lifetime rating a strong F.
Yeah.
Judy Seeberger, 0%. Lifetime is 2.9. Anyhow, you can go to actionforliberty.com. Check this out. Bill Liskey did very well, 95.5%. This is a great scorecard. Yeah, I think you guys did excellent work. One last thing I want to just bring up to you, Mort. I don't think I mentioned this to you before we were going to do the show, but JD Vance had this very interesting interaction. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I'm still open to JD Vance, for president, but this was so pathetic. This is the problem, in my opinion, Washington D.C. And so he did a Turning Point USA event last night, and there's some really good questions being thrown at these guys. This one I thought was really good because the problem that I'm having with Trump right now, one of the problems I'm having with Trump right now is he is so sympathetic to, he's so anti-Thomas Massey.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I really care so much individually about Thomas Massey. Don't know Thomas Massey, right? I know some of his people, but I don't know Thomas personally. It's just that Thomas Massey clearly is one of the most principled conservatives out in Washington D.C., right?
Yep.
So that's how he votes. It's not grandstanding. The guy literally has always voted principally the right way. And, Trump is doing fundraisers, Lindsey Graham. Meanwhile, he's saying we need a primary challenger for Thomas Massey. So this young woman this young woman in the audience, I think this was a great question. She asked basically JD Vance's views on Thomas Massey and why Trump's going after him, and here's his response. I think this is kind of sad.
Endorsed a candidate to run against Republican Representative Thomas Massey, who's opposed and criticized some of the Trump administration's aims. How would you address those who fear that principled disagreement or independent thinking is discouraged within the party because of how it can be framed as a betrayal instead of as internal accountability or an opportunity for debate and negotiation?
So it's a very good question. Let me say this one is hard for me. And the reason it's hard for me is because Thomas Massey and he's one of the first people that ever reached out to me about my book or about political office. I've known Thomas Massey well before I ever got involved in politics. Thomas's wife died maybe it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It was a little while ago. She died very unexpectedly, was a very sweet and kind woman. And I was probably one of the first people that called Thomas to offer my condolences. I think the problem with Thomas, and I've told him this in private, and now I guess I'll say it in public, is it's one thing to disagree with the party on a particular issue. It's one thing to have your independent stand on a number of questions. And by the way, some of the stuff where Thomas Massey has been independent against the Republican Party, I've agreed with him with. Thomas and I worked together during 2023, where I was trying to stop the limitless flow of American money to Ukraine. And Thomas was one of the people I was working closest with it. But that's one thing. Being independent, having your own opinions is one thing. Voting against the party on every single issue, you're eventually going to make too many enemies. And that is the problem that Thomas has had. It's not one issue. It's not 3 or 4 issues. It's that every time that we've needed Thomas for a vote, he has been completely unwilling to provide it. That is why the President of the United States has trained his ire on Thomas Massey. It's because we can never count on him for some of the most difficult votes. I wish that weren't the case. I say that as somebody who's known Thomas well before I got into politics, but politics is politics. And when you always vote against the party, you can't expect the party to actually back you.
Okay, what do you think about that, Mort?
I saw it this morning. I just think it's so disgusting, and it brought me back to 2021, 2022, when I was serving in the House and getting the same accusations thrown against me, that I've got to carry the party's water. And it still happens today. You know, I'm involved in the GOP as a delegate, and I do my individual activism. And when he said, I think the key here, voting against the party, that shows a mindset that, you know, the party, regardless of which direction the party wants to go, and regardless of party platform, you have to be with the party. And to me, that means, on one hand, the party means like nothing. Now, if you want to talk about the party platform, which is really the core of a political party, and in my view, at the very core of any political party, all it really is a set of ideas that says, hey, we believe in these things, whatever, 8, 10, 20 things. There's a party platform, right? And then that platform either attracts people to it or it doesn't attract people to it. But that's the core of a party, is it's a set of ideas. And for him to say that Massey, they can never count on him, it's like Massey is the most reliable vote in the U.S. Congress. Now, you may not like how he's going to vote, but it's pretty easy to predict how he's going to vote. And when he says he doesn't vote with us on the most important things, it's like, well, knowing Massey, then you probably shouldn't be doing the things you're trying to do.
Right. Well, this is the reason I want to bring it up, because here you guys see this is a scorecard. And I know how this stuff is done. Like, literally, it's blind evaluations on bills. I mean, it was always funny when you were in the legislature, because I'm like, well, we really like Mort. I hope when we pick these bills and then we score them, Mort voted the right way. We're pretty certain he did. But there is a chance you didn't, and the scores are going to reflect that, because we blindly check these things. And it's like, we know this stuff ahead of time. These are the good bills. These are bad bills. And it's like, this is the problem. This is why you have this hall of shame, is there's too much groupthink on bad shit because you're told to by the Republican establishment.
Yeah. I mean, those are party people, and party people are just, I try to keep my arm's length away. If you're just rah party, the parties are great. They can do nothing wrong, whatever party is of your choosing. I like to think I always put principle over party. Party
Mhm.
loyalty means like nothing. We should be loyal
Right.
to our values, our principles, what we campaigned on. That ought to be what people can expect from you if you have earned their vote. But oftentimes that's not the case, like our scorecard shows.
Right. Yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing is, I don't even know if I believe JD Vance believes what he's saying there, which just makes it even more
That's the
difficult.
hardest part, probably. I mean, what he's saying is awful. I totally disagree with him. And I didn't follow JD Vance very closely until he got selected to be the VP, and then I didn't even read his book. His book's right behind me. I've never actually opened it, but a buddy
Good.
recommended it, and
That's good.
I,
Good story.
so I'd like to think that JD seems pretty tough. I like the debate, but I mean to blame Thomas Massey and the folks that are calling him a rhino, it's so pathetic. Like I saw Paul Gazelka called you a rhino on Facebook the other day, and it's like, what? Makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, maybe because I'm not a Republican, I'm a conservative first, but the point is I agree with the party platform, right?
Yep.
That's the problem. And so does Thomas Massey. It's this fraudulent party and it's the wrong way. But yeah, I don't think JD really believes it, which makes him just trying to be the company man. And I would have a ton more respect. And I'm just going to be honest with you, knowing the temperament of young voters, I think they would too. If
Yeah.
you just level with them and go, listen, the president and I have a disagreement on this one. I don't agree with what he's saying. I think Thomas Massey is a good politician and we should strive for more conservative. Do you know how much I would be sharing that clip praising JD Vance? I think JD is a good part of our future, but instead JD takes something I don't even believe he's being authentic about, which just makes it far worse. It's like,
Shame.
then we're going to get jack shit if you run for president. It's going to be more of the same.
Yeah.
And that's a
And,
problem.
and everybody ought to feel lucky or blessed to have Massey in there. He's the one reliable voice in the U.S. Congress, maybe some Marjorie Taylor Greene on some issues. He got Rand in the Senate. And I met Thomas Massey 4 years ago, and he talked about it because, Trump has begged for primary challengers for Massey, I think for at
Mhm.
least 3 election cycles, and Massey always wins big, but, he spoke in an event that I was at, and he said, "Look, the president tried to primary me as if I really care about getting reelected." He's like, "What? If I lose my primary, I have to spend more time with my family on my farm and tinkering with his hobbies." He's like, "So what? Big deal." And I just loved that mentality that he had, and I tried to have that same mentality when I served. Is I'm not going to let losing an election dictate my behavior. That's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and obviously you did lose an election, and that's why you're not a legislator. And yeah, I mean, now you're doing other things. I would argue maybe almost as good, if not better, than what you were doing up at the Capitol. So, and obviously his was more personal, but Thomas Massey could communicate liberty even from the outside. But I do think he's going to win, and I think
Oh,
it's important to have people like that. But according to Trump right now, we should have Lindsey Graham, not a Thomas Massey, and that's absolutely ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, it
So,
is.
O'Bannon says Massey is proof that just a few principled folks can change the direction of legislation. Yeah, the fact that he's being talked about is the fact that he's making inroads. Um, yeah, he does. He's got a big following and a big supporters. I think the thing I've learned, you and I were talking about Nick Fuentes today on the phone. I'm sorry to talk about a private conversation here, but I don't think you're gonna mind. And you're like, yeah, I've never even heard of this guy, and I didn't even until like a
I mean, I've
couple weeks
heard of
ago.
him. I see his name every frickin' day, but
Now,
I
right?
I'm busy. I never look at the content. It's like, okay, Nick Fuentes, good, bad. I don't know. I don't care. I'm busy. I've got things to do. So I know almost literally nothing about him other than he's controversial, maybe, but so are a lot of other
But you're
people.
supposed to hate him, and that's the thing is the reason he's getting so many of these interviews and becoming part of the conversation is because of what the enemies did to him, and it's not working for them. And so if you think you're going to squash Thomas Massey by saying we're going to primary Massey and all that stuff, people are looking for authenticity. The young voters, it's almost weird to say this, but I almost feel like the old voters are getting duped
Mm,
more than the young voters, because the young voters in many regards are products of this new age of new media and technology, and they're like, I mean, well, I just put this one together. Yeah, I'll say young voter is less likely to be duped by AI than a boomer. I
yeah, true,
100% stand by
true.
that comment. But they are looking for authenticity. When you look at a lot of these podcasts that do very well, one of the characteristics is that they're very authentic. and you get that authenticity, I think, from Thomas Massey. Not that he hasn't screwed up, and we've criticized him on some things here on the show, but what I get from JD Vance, and I don't know what the dynamic of that crowd was, but you didn't hear a bunch of clapping after you got done talking. They're probably like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Like,
I would hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I love doing this with you, Mort. I know the audience loves this. You need to be on media more often. I know you're a busy guy, but damn it, you got a lot to say, and it's fun talking.
Every time we do something like this, whether it's Truth Hurts or I fire up the old Behind the Smoke Screen, which, by the way, I feel like Paul Gazelka's book title, he kind of stole Behind the Smoke Screen. He just changed it a little bit. So I feel like I influenced his book title. But I should be doing more of it, quite honestly, and I know I need to. So I will make more of an effort to talk about this in this sort of a setting, talk about politics in this sort of a setting so people can know what the heck is going on, because the games are getting played at all times, all across the state. And if you're not politically super in tune, you don't see the games. Most people don't see the games. And I think that's what we excel at, is shining a spotlight on the games in a way and breaking it down so people can understand and go, oh yeah, that is bullshit.
Well, and I think in the state, especially with these candidacies for governor, which I'm not impressed with any of these gubernatorial candidates. Yeah, I mean, like, you're going to hear all of a sudden these camps, you're going to see these camps form, and then people are like, well, Kristen Robbins really is a good person, or Kendall Qualls really is our next best hope. And it's like, yeah, but do you know about this? Like, we know these things. Like, so we got something to be said there. But even on the national stage, it's so obvious. There is a concerted effort. Knives are out right now for who is going to lead the voice of the resistance to the crazy left. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear that Trump is on board with the resistance that we are trying to, promote, right? The ones that would say Thomas Massey is a good one. And in many regards, the establishment is basically allied with Trump, which is a big power center, to try to win over that voice. And that's why people are coming after Tucker Carlson, and that's why they come after people like Thomas Massey. You can't possibly criticize the government of Israel. How dare you do that? You must be a Jew hater, right? So it's like, and that seems to be one of the biggest issues out there, but there's plenty more out there. Epstein was another great one, So there's really a battle. Knives are out, and it's like we can't even get to this argument against the Democrats until we settle this. Who's going to lead this? And that's where I think you got a lot to offer.
I mean, that is so true. I mean, we've been interviewing for different roles at Action for Liberty, and obviously having kind of like-minded people is important, and I think people know what they're applying for. It's like, oh, here's our name, here's our website, and I'll have to ask people when I'm interviewing them, all right, so envision I'll just say 1776. There's a battlefield for independence. As a likely liberty person I'm talking to in an interview, as you look out on that battlefield, who do you see as the first enemies to liberty that we need to fight through? And politically speaking, of course, and I'm impressed that most people kind of have the same thought. And the answer I'm looking for is it's the rhinos. It's the squishy Republicans. It's the guys that are supposed to be with us, but they're not. Those are the first enemies on that battlefield of liberty. And we either need to conquer them politically or get them on our side to get to that next layer, which would be like, the independents or light Democrats. But that's the real battlefield of liberty. And frankly, I think that's what, like, even Sam Adams, if we could go back 250 years, he would say, look, my first challenge was getting the rest of the colonies on board, getting past these loyalists that are more self-interested in their self-gain if we don't go to war with England. I think that's what he would probably say. And I feel like that's what we're trying to do is, hey, you should be with us. We should want to be free and free of the crazy woke and liberalism stuff. But of course, they don't want to be conquered, if you will, the rhinos. They want to stand firm in the middle. And that's why they accuse us of being the bad guys, when if they really cared about the values that they espouse campaigning, they would be with us 100%. But like the scorecard shows, they're not.
Well, and we're never going to win those people over. It's really just for the heart of the base, right? Um,
Well, I
there's
mean,
there's so many things at play. Some of those people literally are getting a livelihood from it. They're
yeah,
social
for sure.
media
Yeah.
influencers that they might even be paid under the table as stuff that's being revealed by Israel making these payments to people. But it's like a lot of them just do it because they're position themselves for that nice new position, or maybe they get a run for Congress or something like that, right?
Yeah, I guess what I'm
Um,
referring to is like, what real political power is getting politicians to do what you want or replacing with people who will. And so I'm kind of referring to activism at that point where it's like, all right, if you can't get Mary Franson to actually vote pro liberty at least 80% of the time, okay, maybe someone in her district should rise up and say, I'm going to primary Mary Franson
right.
because she outs herself as some staunch, conservative, but she's not. She just isn't.
Yeah, but somewhere along the way, politics comes down to people, and so it's
Mhm.
really a battle for the hearts and minds, because the Mary Francens of the world will also say, "Well, I am a strong conservative, and I voted for this bill." And I just had this somebody, a friend of mine was, critical of an article Jesse wrote, and I didn't really care to I'm like, "Here's Jesse's number, you can call Jesse." But I entertained it for a little while, and he's like trying to stand up for this Republican legislature. I'm like, at the end of the day, listen, this guy is lying to you. Like, I know the lies, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of unfolded them, and that's it. It's like, I truly believe more that they won't debate us. These people won't they won't. It's not just not coming on the show. They won't even debate me on their shows, right?
Yeah.
Because they know we have a better argument. Like, we know, they basically have to assume people are not paying attention, and most people are not paying attention, and then they'll
Mhm.
fall for the legislative updates that they send to you.
Yeah.
That's just why I'm so great and special.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we come along and go, no, look at the scorecard, guys. This is how they vote.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing. Sometimes it's not even bad in the scorecard. You have to understand, Jim Nash, and it took me 12 minutes to explain it, but here's the 12-minute video. I explain how they killed the Never Again bill. So it's like there's a battle for the hearts and minds of the base, which are great people, which are conservative, and that's why I think we also have a benefit here, is because we think like the base, right? And that needs to be won, and I think new media is a big part of that. Obviously the activism work by Action for Liberty, and just continuing to do what you guys do is so damn important.
Yeah, that's what gets me up and out of bed every day. Is this feels like it's my personal mission is looking at my daughter turned 18 yesterday, my son turned 16 last week, and you think about the future that they're going to have. I had a little daydream when I was in the Boundary Waters 2 weeks ago that my daughter's current boyfriend asked her to marry him, and
Wait, no, hold on. What did you just say?
had a daydream. I'm in the Boundary Waters. I'm sitting by the fire pit, and Raker's sleeping. My son's sleeping in his tent, and I just got on this thought track of, gosh, what if at 18, like my daughter's boyfriend asked to marry her, and oh, what would I do? And I thought, the first thing I would do is I'd go look. And I don't care what guy eventually proposes to my daughter. I'm going to tell him, all right, you're telling me you're going to provide for my daughter, then we're going to go up to the Boundary Waters where it's like mimics the end of civilization, and I'm gonna make sure that you are competent to take care of my daughter. I mean, that's my fear of what's the future gonna look like and how bad that might look. So that's gonna be how I qualify a potential fiance for Roma.
Oh my god. Oh, your daughter's got to be so embarrassed. I can't believe you got an 18-year-old daughter now. Holy crap.
Yeah, that's
Um, this is a very good question O'Bannon just wrote. Jake would make a great lieutenant governor for Mort. I always think that's like the big beta move is the people that just decide they're going to run for lieutenant governor. Now, if you're asked, it is
yeah.
one thing, but people position themselves. Now, I want to just be O'Bannon says more for governor for real. I didn't see that one. So let me just address this real quick. And this has been brought up on the show. Personally, it's a terrible time for me to run for governor, but there's this opportunity, and I was thinking about this on my hike yesterday. Like, what an opportunity in the landscape to have someone that's really willing to go hard in the paint. And a person I tried recruiting who's just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. And I'm just not in the position to run for governor as much as I like this. Now, with the suggestion by O'Bannon, if you ran for governor and asked me to be your LG candidate, I would do it, Mort, because I view that as not so intrusive on a lot of my personal stuff. So, Mort, I mean, there you go.
We got a big announcement. Big announcement.
Yeah, and I think that really, and the thing that really got me there is like someone really has to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel bad saying that because I know it's not me, right?
Yeah, there is such a huge lane. I was telling someone this at the state fair that was asking about governor candidates, and I just said, look, we can't endorse, we don't endorse, but I mean, if you're asking if I think any of the current field are legit Liberty candidates, no, I don't view any of them as like wanting to carry the torch of Liberty into, the governor's mansion. But I think there is a huge lane for somebody to step in and lead in a bold way and communicate conservative values in a way that appeals to that, 3, 4, 5, 6% of independents that kind of live in the middle that sway elections. But right now, I just don't think that we see that in the current field. And it'd be nice if somebody were to fill that void, because I think, even if they didn't win, they can at least set the kind of, start to change the momentum a little bit with some strong messaging anyway. But yeah, I just don't see that person out there, and I certainly do not plan on doing it.
Well, let me once again, going back to this daydream, I thought if I was to do something like that, the campaign would be like bold truths, and every campaign consultant would be like, don't do that. Like in a second they catch on something, then they're gonna make you so bad. But the nice thing about that is Walz is known for being a liar, right? So you're countering his lies. But I would almost feel like it'd be freeing, because then I don't get in that box JD Vance gets in. If I screw up, I just admit it, and I think people would appreciate it, and it would hold me accountable. If I don't know a question or something like that, I'm not going to bullshit people. I'd be like, listen, let me get back to you. Even if it's in a debate, listen, man, I'm just going to level with you. This guy over here won't. He'll lie to you. He'll lie to you multiple times, like serving overseas, when he was in China. I don't know the answer to your question, and I will get back to you because it's very important to me. Stuff like that. It's like that would be the fun way to position. Every campaign consultant would hate it, right?
Oh yeah,
I think Minnesotans would appreciate it. So I think there's just such a great opportunity, because I think Tim Walz is a terrible candidate, and boy, would I love beating up on him there, metaphorically.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely more vulnerable than he's ever been. But I was shocked he got reelected in 2022 after 2 years of COVID tyranny. You would think, I certainly hoped, that there is no way people cannot tolerate that level of tyranny and then reelect a guy. But, the No Kings people, but the No Kings people went out and reelected their king. So
we got a question. When is the A4L Christmas event? Do you know the date?
December 11th at the Mermaid. We're going to be, actually, we have a meeting later today to just hammer out the details and start getting the messaging out there and ticket sales and all that. So December 11th, and I'm trying to get, we collectively as a committee, we're trying to get some good speakers. So I've got some lines in the water. We'll see what happens. I won't mention any names because I don't want to get, anybody angry in case it doesn't work out.
Right. Yes, I don't mention those names. Billy Tutu says SEC meeting is December 13th, so hope A4L Christmas party is close to that date. So answer is yes, it is that Thursday. So good to see you, Billy 22. You're coming down, you and the wife, and bring the whole gang with you. Actually, buy a table, Billy 22. It'll be a great time. I know it was actually a lot of fun hanging out with you and the wife in the bar afterwards. One last one. Mary K21 says, what's your thoughts on Philip Parrish? Mega Jesse did a good article about all the candidates. So I'd point you to actionforliberty.com to check that out.
I would. Here's some thoughts on Phil. Well, not so much Phil as a candidate, but I'm thoroughly enjoying his AI videos. And to be honest, mocking them hysterically and showing them to my wife, because when he's playing himself as Rocky and he's playing himself as the Terminator, it's like, All right, maybe that'll appeal to some people, but it comes across pretty cheesy.
Well, if he is a AI character, he could be on Ron Krisha's Golden Shovel Company, apparently. All right. Thank you so much, Mort, for joining us. People can go to actionforliberty.com to learn more. And I will stick around here for the post show with you guys. I want to give some of my parting thoughts here on politics in Minnesota. And we will be, for those people that aren't too, oh God, I forgot all about the sponsorships. Thank you so much, Mort. This was brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Geez, Jake paid the bills around here. Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, the great, wonderful city of St. Cloud, and the great company, Alpine Cabinetry. Boy, could I mess this up more. Also brought to you by Elite Guardian, mn.com, prepper company. Our next permit to carry course is going to be, I don't know if that's a public one. I don't have one listed right now. The next one's in November, early November. I'll have to get back to you. Just check EliteGuardianMN.com. Our great concealed carry and home defense course qualifies you for your Minnesota permit to carry requirements. If you are a post show, or if you're a premium subscriber, we'll be in the post show here in 30 seconds. If you're not, go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us, even if it's after the fact, or if you're on Rumble, just click on join us. I'll be back next week with another episode. I think I'll have to do Tuesday if I remember right. No, I am here Thursday. Well, I'll be back with one episode next week. So if you're not a premium subscriber, I'll see you then. For premium subscribers, I'll see you in 30 seconds.